Is it possible to buy one, get one free in property? Please do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button. It helps me more than you think. I get lots of questions from people about how to start, especially if they don't have much money or experience. They like the idea of investing in property for the long-term capital growth and cash flow, but often the issue is they don't have the initial funds to get started and leave in. If you think about it, there are lots of upfront costs. These include paying for a valuation, legal fees, broker fees, deposit on exchange, remaining funds on completion, stamp duty costs, costs for any refurbishment works undertaken. So this got me thinking, is there a way of buying a property and getting one free? I wanted to disregard things like lease options and focus on property that you can actually buy and get one free with. So I started to think and think and think some more. I actually wanted to ignore no money left in deals, as these tend to be needles in haystacks. The discount needed on these deals often means that they are very difficult to come by, and even if you do, it's really difficult to find the next one. In the past, I have heard people say that you should sell 3 in order to hold 1. So you should flip 3, that's buy and sell 3 properties, and use the funds from those to invest in 1. This seems very time consuming, and so something I decided to disregard straight away. The time it would take to go through 3 sets of valuation, legals, refurbishments, and the time to sell, I feel would take a long time, but also be very stressful in the process. And then it hit me. I've actually completed a project whereby I purchased 1 property, which was a 3-bedroom terraced house, which I converted into 2 1-bedroom apartments, which, if I sold one of the flats, I would have ended up with the other flat for free. Buy one, get one free. You do need money upfront to get started, but the point here is that if you can show an investor who might also, and is more likely than not, to be a friend or family member, the way in which they are likely to get their money back, I can't see any reason why this wouldn't work. If anything, it's more likely to be appealing, as you can show the investor an exit strategy, which is the sale of a 1-bedroom apartment, which even in the current climate is likely to be affordable. This particular strategy does require planning permission, so I was thinking if someone with no experience would be able to pull this off. And so I got thinking, did the buy-to-let houses I had purchased, so the normal 3-bedroom houses, prepare me in any way for converting a house into 2 flats? I'd have to say I don't feel it did. And also the question became, how many buy-to-lets do you have to do in order to move on to bigger and bigger projects? Do I need to do 5 buy-to-lets before I can move on to converting a house into 2 flats? Do I need to convert 5 or 10 houses into flats before I can move on to converting mixed-use commercial units or office space into apartments? I definitely believe in stepping stones and taking one step at a time, but if I'm honest, I don't see why you have to start off by buying 3-bedroom houses to let out. If I'm completely honest, that is a mistake, and a mistake that I made when I first started. Using the B4R property investing model, I would have started off buying 2-bedroom houses instead of 3-bedroom houses, and turning these 2-bedroom houses into 3-bedroom houses. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is there a certain number of vanilla buy-to-lets you have to have before moving on to the bigger projects, such as converting houses into flats? And then a certain number of these projects before you can move on to, say, commercial conversions. Okay, enough chit chat, let's get into the bog off in property. So I purchased this 3-bedroom house for £265,000. The stamp duty was £7,950, legal fees were £7,000, and all in, the refurbishment and other costs were £70,000. So all in, £349,950. If I decided to sell each of the flats, then they would have sold for £410,000, making me a profit of £60,000. Now, if I decided to sell one of the flats, that would have raised £210,000. And then if I refinanced the other flat, that would have raised £150,000. So total, £360,000, more than enough to pay off the entire project with some funds left over. So with this project, I could have purchased 1 house, converted it into 2 flats, sold one of the flats, and refinanced the other to pay off my investor and the original loan. So this is assuming that you need to pay off your investor and he expects his funds back once one of the flats are sold. So on paper, the numbers work, and I've actually completed this project but decided to hold on to both of these flats. I refinanced at the £410,000 valuation, which released £307,500, which I used to pay off my initial investment and the bank £349,950, which meant that upon the refinance, I was in for £42,000. That's £21,000 per apartment. Imagine your investor now, instead of wanting his money back, actually wanted to invest in property and wanted to buy one flat. Assuming it's the £200,000 one, then they would have had to put down a 25% deposit plus stamp duty and legal fees, and that would have come in at £50,000 plus £6,000 plus £1,000. So all in, they would have been in for £57,000. If they were happy to invest £57,000, then you could show them a way to end up with two flats with only £42,000 left in. Would they be interested? I think so. They end up getting two flats for less than the cost of one if they had purchased as a traditional investor. In this instance, they are getting more than a buy one get one free. The reason I'm sharing this with you is that traditional property investors invest in property for the long term, for capital appreciation and cash flow. Generally, they don't like doing anything too creative because usually they don't know, or even if they do, they don't have the time or want to spend the additional money to do something more creative, even if it means they tie up less of their money at the end. In this example, you could show this to your investor and help them do one project so that they end up with two flats with £42,000 left in. If they did it their way, they would have left in £114,000 for two flats. So in essence, you've showed them a way to save £72,000. And on the basis that they buy one house and get two flats with £42,000 left in, when in the first place they were happy to buy one flat the traditional way for £57,000. You could then ask the investor to finance the next project, and on that project you could sell one and keep hold of one, or even sell both so that you could have enough money to do the next project and end up holding both flats. Converting a house into flats does require more work and the steps when compared to a normal buy-to-let purchase. There is planning permission to obtain, and the refurbishment works are more involved, as you will now have to consider things like splitting the utilities, sound testing, and making sure everything is completed in line with building regulations. But a lot of this work is outsourced to professionals, so as long as your numbers work, then there's no reason you can't do this type of project. The information needed is the same as completing a normal buy-to-let project. What can I afford to pay for the property? How much will the works cost? What will it be worth once completed? The additional information needed will be around planning, which you can get help from an architect, and more work in terms of the refurbishment, which you will get quotes for like you would any normal refurbishment. If you want to find out how I released £187,000 tax-free from one property, then check out my free course at ravinderorjla.com.